Okay, so day one of bird rescue, we found a dove outside on the grass, and he seemed like he wasn't able to fly. He didn't seem injured or anything, but there was cats hanging around, so we thought it was probably the best thing to put him in a box and take him inside and maybe try and release him the next day. So we put him in a little box, gave him some seeds and a little water bowl, and he seemed to be happy enough. He wasn't panicking, his heart rate wasn't high that we could see. Didn't look like he was breathing heavy or anything. We just kept him in there, kept him in the shade. The plan was to release him in the morning. Day two. Okay, so the next day we bring him outside to see if he'll fly away. We covered up his box through the night so he didn't get scared or panicked or get out, fly around the house. He didn't seem to be eating or drinking anything, but he seemed a little bit more lively in the morning, so we took him outside. Thought maybe the fresh air and the sunlight would wake him up, encourage him to fly. So we take him out, give him a little look to see if he's okay. He seems healthy enough. Then we put him down on the grass to see what he does. And he doesn't really do anything. He just sits there. He sat there for a few minutes looking around. Didn't really seem keen on walking anywhere or flying anywhere. We gave him a little nudge to see if he'd move, and he took a few steps, but he didn't really seem keen on going anywhere. And we didn't want to leave him there for the cats to get him, so we tried encouraging him with a bit of food. That didn't seem to work. We thought we'd give it a few more minutes. If he doesn't fly away or at least walk away, we're going to have to try and bring him back inside to keep him away from the cats. He didn't really seem to be doing anything there, so we just picked him up, put him back in his little box and take him back inside and hopefully try him again tomorrow. The plan was to take him back in, try him again with some food and water and see what he would do. So we set up a little play area for him, kind of, gave him some boxes to climb on, but he seemed to take a shine to my dad's shoes for some reason. Maybe it was a smell or something, but when we put him down in the house, he walked straight over to the shoes and just perched up on there, and he seemed happy enough there, so we left him there. Then we tried giving him some water. He didn't really seem interested in it, but we thought we'd better give it a go. At least if we can get some water in him, maybe he'll be fine. But he didn't really know what to do, and then after a few minutes of trying, he takes a bit. So we've got him now in the house. He's safe, and now he's drinking water, so they're all good things. The only thing that he's not doing is eating any food, so he takes another little drink there. We were just feeding him with a spoon for now because he didn't seem to be going near any little bowls or plates that we were putting down. He just hung around on the shoes all day. So we were trying him every 30-40 minutes or so, just giving him a little bit of water, and he was taking a tiny little sip. And then we were also trying him with food. He didn't seem to be that interested in the food, but he was preening himself. He was stretching his wings a little bit, so it didn't look like he was injured or anything. And then we moved him again, and he went straight back over to the shoes, so we just left him on there. That seemed to be like his little comfort blanket. He was staying on there all day. We thought we'll give him a little perch, maybe he'll sit on that, and he just walked along it and went right back up onto the chair with the shoes. So we tried him with some bird seed. We put a few on the shoes, maybe thinking that he would be more likely to take them, but he didn't really seem interested. He was looking at them, but he wasn't even trying to eat. We weren't sure whether he knew that was food or not, but he just seemed to be totally bewildered with looking at the seeds. And then day 3, we picked him up, carried him around, showed him out the window, and he caught sight of another pigeon. So we were hoping that would encourage him to want to go out and rejoin the other birds, but he was happy enough to just sit there looking out, and he actually started falling asleep at the window. So we put him down a little piece of paper, and then we got him some mealworms from the pet shop, hoping that maybe the food that moved would encourage him to sort of trigger his natural instincts more, to maybe go for that moving food and eat them. But the mealworms were wriggling around. He didn't really seem that interested, so I tried moving it. I thought maybe he'd peck at it, but he went for the seeds instead. He seemed to be more interested in the seeds than the worms. Maybe the worms were a little too big for him. But he still wasn't eating anything. He was pecking at things, but he wasn't actually swallowing any. So we weren't sure if he was even hungry. He must have been starving by now, because this is 3 days later. And we set up a little perch for him. He had his own water bowl. He's obviously got the mealworms there, a whole box to himself. He's got a little jar of seeds. We mixed up some flax seeds with water to try and encourage him to eat or drink out of there, and he just wasn't having it. He decided to just hang around on the shoes all day. He was happy enough pottering about on the floor. He'd sit on his little perch that we made for him, and then he'd jump down. If we put him on the floor, he'd go straight over to the shoes and just sit on there for hours and preen himself. So we kind of knew that he obviously wasn't seriously injured or ill, because he wouldn't be moving around like he was, and he wouldn't be preening himself. He would just be sitting there, and he was going back and forward from one shoe to the other, so we knew that he didn't have any serious leg injuries or anything like that. He was happy to sit there all day preening himself, so we just kept an eye on him. We offered him his little spoonful of water every now and then, and some seeds. We were happy he was drinking, but he didn't seem to be eating anything. And then that night I stayed up for a bit to see if he wanted some company. I thought maybe he'd eat something at night. And then the next day we took him outside, and we tried him outside in the grass again. So this time we tried him out the front, because it's more wide open and the cats were less likely to be round there. So I put him down on the grass to see what he would do, and he just sat there. He didn't really seem interested. Took a little bit of encouragement to get him off the hand. We showed him the mealworms to see if he'd be encouraged by them, but nope, he was happy to just sit there preening himself. So finally got him on the grass, and he took a little wander around. He was pecking at the grass a few times. We did put a few mealworms down for him, but he didn't seem interested, so we just put him back in the box. But he just didn't really seem that bothered. He didn't seem scared or intimidated by us. He was happy to just come over and hide underneath me while I was filming him. And because my shoes are the same make as the shoes that he'd taken as his new nest, he decided that, oh, I'm going to go and hang out by your shoes. Put a few mealworms down for him. He had a little peck at them this time, but he still didn't pick anything up. He didn't swallow anything. And a good 10-15 minutes he just hung around by my feet. He didn't seem to want to go anywhere. I think he felt safe with us because he knew, he trusted us. We were feeding him and looking after him. And then he just decided that he wanted to hop up on my shoe. So we were pretty sure at that point he wasn't really going to go anywhere. So we just put him back in his box and we took him back inside. We moved his perch closer to the window so he could see out, and we just put him up there, and he was happy to sit there all day. He sat there looking out. He would wander around. If we picked him up, he would sit in your hand. He was happy enough. He was making a little bit of a mess by crapping everywhere, but I mean, what can you expect? He's a wild bird. It was a good sign that he was crapping a lot, because it seemed like the more he did that, he must have been eating something. Obviously it must have been when we weren't looking, because we hadn't seen him eat yet. But we put him down, we tried him with a piece of banana, and he started actually walking around and hopping and motioning like he wanted to fly. So we thought maybe he's getting ready to use his wings. He was hopping up and down from the box, and at one point off camera he did actually fly from the foam block to the chair, which is about 3 foot, but it's better than nothing. So at that point we knew he was able to fly. We just weren't sure how far and how high. He flew over from the block to the chair, and then we just tried him back on the floor to see if he would do it again, and he just pottered around, hopping up and down. He kept looking in his box. I think he wanted to go in there and have a sleep maybe, but if he wanted to get in, he was able to. I took him in the room at one point just to see what he'd be like in a different environment, and he seemed mesmerised by my tartan shirt that was hanging up. So he just stared at that for a good 10-15 minutes, and then I gave him a little tickle just to see if he was alright, and then once he realised he was safe, he just started preening himself again, and he did this for 15-20 minutes maybe, plucked out a few little feathers, and then he just settled down like he was ready to go to sleep again. But at this point he still hadn't eaten, so we were starting to get worried really. We thought the last thing that we want him to do is starve to death. I mean, we've saved him from the cats, we've saved him from dehydration. We don't want him to just die of starvation because he won't eat. And then finally we tried him again with some seeds, and he started to eat them. Obviously we were really happy with this, because now we know he's able to eat, so he was able to feed himself. And then day 5 we decided to put his perch up in the window, maybe encourage him to flap his wings a little bit. He'd see the other birds flying around, and then we took him down to the grass to see if maybe watching the other birds fly would encourage him to fly. He did wander around a little bit. He wandered off at one point and I followed him. He didn't seem to be trying to run away from me. He just came over and sat on my shoes again. So we picked him up and we carried him back to where we found him, and he just seemed to potter about, hanging around by our feet, pecked at the grass a little bit, and then he started to wander off. So I followed him, and he just came back over to me and again hopped up on my shoe, hung out there for a little while, and then he decided to wander off again. But we didn't want to leave him at this point because we were worried about the cats. There's a lot of cats hang around in this area, and with him not being able to fly seemingly, we didn't want him vulnerable on the ground. So I picked him up and we carried him back over, tried him with the bird bath. No, I don't think he likes the look of that water. It's a bit dirty for him. And the whole time I'd managed to avoid getting pooed on, and then he does a little poo in my hand. So I managed to go 5 days without getting pooed on, and then on the last day he pooed on me, and then just while we were looking at that, he decided to fly off, totally out of the blue. I think he just saw a branch in the tree and went for it. So at this point we were really happy. Obviously he's been fed, he's had water, he's been safe for a couple of days, so any sort of minor injuries he had, hopefully he's recovered. And he just sat up there in the tree. We thought maybe he'll come back down, maybe he'll fly away, but we stuck around for maybe a good 15-20 minutes. and he just sat on that branch. He didn't seem to move. He was looking at us still, but he didn't seem to fly away, which I thought was kind of weird. And we went out. We thought maybe we'll go out, we'll come back, and he'll be gone. Hopefully he'll have flown off and met up with some of the birds. That's where we found him. So we released him a few feet away from where he was found, and he was straight up in the nearest tree. There he is there, sitting on the branch, happy enough. And then when we came back later on, we noticed he was still there. He hadn't moved, which was kind of weird. We weren't sure if he just thought that was a perch he could just spend the day on and then come back inside the house. So we kept checking up on him, and then the following morning we came back to check and he was gone. So luckily the bird rescue was a complete success. So I mean, if you like the video, subscribe to the channel, share the video. It's our first bird rescue, so we weren't planning on this. It just came out of the blue. We just found him outside. Obviously it's not a sort of thing that's going to be happening regularly, but there is going to be a lot more content coming to the channel soon. This was just kind of a happy story. I thought maybe we should put something positive on the channel to start it off. And it took quite a while to film and edit all this together, so because it was filmed on a GoPro and 2 different mobile phones, which is why the footage is a bit weird, and there's no sound to it either, because we were just mumbling and talking rubbish basically. That's why I'm putting the sound on now, to make it a little bit more interesting than just watching a video in no context. So anyway, if you like the channel, you like the video, subscribe, share, and have a good one.